What happens when the market crashes, your wholesale disappears, and CACs spike overnight? For Hudson Davis-Ross and Plan People, the answer wasn't to raise another round. It was to rebuild the business from the ground up. In this episode, Hudson shares the full turnaround story, from COVID collapse to double-digit growth and profitability. We unpack how this 8-figure and profitable business implemented SKU rationalization, how 3PL shifts unlocked capital, and why mushroom gummies became their breakout hit. We talk about what brands can learn from CPD's rise and fall, how Plan People built a lean, channel-diverse business now thriving in Whole Foods, Amazon, and D2C. If you're in the middle of a reset or wondering how to scale without burning cash, this one's for you. Welcome to In the Money, an exploration of whether you can still make money in D2C and CPG. We followed the flow of money between founders, investors, lenders, and everyone else in the ecosystem to ultimately answer the question, is D2C and CPG still a good business? Hope you'll enjoy the show. Hudson, we've known each other for a few years. There was a period where the business was a little bit challenged, and then I would catch up with you 6 months later, 12 months later, 18 months later. And now we fast forward a few years and all of a sudden, bang, it was growing, it was profitable. There are a lot of brands out in market at the moment that are challenged. How did you navigate to get to the point that you are now?
Yeah, so I think there was a multi-pronged approach. I mean, the context for why we weren't performing was definitely environmental. So, we were pre-COVID, we were doing fantastic, no investors, no debt, did a couple million in the first 18 months, profitable. And, we were actually scaling up the team to about 3 to 4x the number of people. And we were launching with major retailers, distributors nationwide. And then the month we were launching at those, with those partners, COVID hit and everything basically went to crap. So we lost 90% of our wholesale revenue. We entered a very expensive, high CAC environment online where everyone was spending to acquire customers. And, I think in the 2 years of the beginning of COVID, we were definitely challenged, that's for sure. And the challenge for us was we were just trying to keep up with online spend where most of the businesses were VC backed and we weren't. And they had built paid marketing businesses or business models based off of VC money. And, my business partner, Gabe, and I basically were like, this is unsustainable, not fun. And, I think one weekend I basically didn't sleep and I put together an 18-month plan that was multi-pronged. So how we got out of it was sort of a sum of all parts approach, multiple prongs. So one was operations. Let's move our warehouse from managing it ourselves to a less expensive third-party logistics, 3PL, more central in the United States. It was originally in New York City. So not only will we reach customers faster, our shipping costs would be less just because we're more central. And then we found a partner that was more economical. I think running your own facility is fantastic. But over time, you really start to lean on full-time hires to make it happen versus a professional that has a huge operation and your costs start to build up. The second is we really started to focus on rationalizing SKUs that weren't performing. It really took me a moment to understand. I always assume when you roll out many products, you had opportunities just to keep on growing revenue per basket. The way I started thinking about it during those COVID years, mostly because I had to, and I still think about it that way now, so definitely a learning, is essentially, say you spend on inventory today and you get it back, say it's $100,000 just for conversation purposes, and then you get it to your shipping center, 3PL, within 3.5 months at best. Then you do that for another product 3 months later, and then you do it for another product 2 months later, and then you do it for another product 5 months later. Then you have all this sunk cost in each product. And the best way that you can make that money back is selling those products faster. But if you have money stuck in slower moving products, then you can't use that stuck money for marketing for the fast moving ones. So it sounds really basic and obvious, but you don't really notice it until you start to compare the performance of SKUs. So we really focused on rationalizing SKUs. During that time, we also we had people who ended up leaving the company after being at the company for 3 years, which is a fantastic run for a startup. But we also just didn't rehire them, just the lower spend. And then the tough part was we just basically had to start saying no to things. We had so much inbound of people doing co-marketing and spending here, spending there, retailer spending. We wanted to stay on shelves with some retailers, but they were asking us to spend. Didn't really make sense. And we started saying no. So I would say like it came down to people, operations, definitely SKU rationalization. And then the last thing I would say is, we were always super nervous about debt and taking on any sort of line of credits. And I would say for sure, we wouldn't be around today if we didn't get a line of credit. I think we had hit a turning point by sort of zeroing in and getting through those challenges, but we were at an inflection point where there was an opportunity to launch with a major retailer, and we engaged a line of credit partner. And I used to be always scared about debt until I started really thinking through and getting in the weeds of cash flow during that really tough time, and understanding that a line of credit and paying a percentage of those dollars back as interest is better. It's better to have a business that can go as far as possible, but pay a little bit of a fee, especially when you're in a high margin business.
So for the brands that are in this turnaround situation at the moment, they're hearing, okay, I can try to lower my ship and pack by moving fulfillment centers. That's expensive, but I can kind of get on board with that. I can reduce my overhead with headcount. I can reduce my OpEx. But you guys grew through that. So like that's often the place where a lot of brands are getting stuck. They're like, okay, I've gotten to maybe unprofitable to break even, but I still need to grow to create enterprise value. You talked a little bit about kind of SKU rationalization to double down on the winners, but yeah, how else have you guys grown so much in the last 3 years?
Yeah. So while we were essentially going through that challenging experience and trying to turn around the business and just sort of the economics and the business model, in parallel, while I was looking into SKU rationalization, I was like, wow, this one product is really moving better than the others. And that product was WonderDay, our mushroom gummies. So we were one of the first in the market to roll out with these mushroom gummies, definitely the one with the most distribution, and really marketed it the most. We saw the mushroom category. We've always been doing adaptogens and nootropics since we launched in 2018. But we saw the category of mushrooms exploding, and we were like, no one's really doing a gummy version. Everyone thinks mushrooms are kind of gross, or mainstream thinks they're kind of gross. They're in the earth. And we look at packaging online, in stores or online. The packaging was traditionally always like kind of brown and sort of like earthy. And so we saw an opportunity to apply the gummy form factor to the mushroom category. So when we were doing that rationalization study, we saw that our mushroom gummies were selling much better than ever. So the way we thought about it was, let's not do reorders of these lower performing, lower velocity SKUs. And then when that money is freed up and we get paid back in profits and also just straight up covering our costs for those SKUs, take that capital that was once like locked into the lower performing SKUs and actually start to push it into larger inventory runs of say WonderDay at that time, that one mushroom gummy product, and then also start to push some of that capital into marketing. So we kind of had to like rationalize and also double down on one SKU, because if we didn't have a SKU to double down on, then we might as well shut down the store. And the original goal of that 18-month plan I put together was like, let's just get this business up to it on its feet, and maybe we can just sell it. I would say by the tail end of that 18-month plan, we were like, wow, actually, this gummy is really performing, so much so that we ended up saying, let's take the chance and roll out with 2 more SKUs. So one for stress, one for sleep. And it's kind of evolved. The business has evolved in that direction since, and it's way above just getting up on its feet. I would say the business is definitely like dancing and jumping at this point.
AI, AI, AI. Everyone's talking about it, and you're worried you're getting left behind. Meet RichPanel, an AI-first customer support platform that's built for one thing: making support faster, smarter, and cheaper for e-commerce brands. Something you can actually feel smarter about using. RichPanel combines a unified inbox across email, chat, and socials, a customizable self-service portal that customers actually use, and Sidekick AI, powered by GPT-4, which learns from your past tickets to suggest on-brand replies. Does it actually work? Well, with Rich Panel's guarantee, you get guaranteed 30% cost savings when you switch from Zendesk or Gorgeous, 30% automation to reduce your ticket volume, and a no-risk guarantee that if Rich Panel doesn't deliver those results in 60 days, you get a full refund. That's why top brands like Ridge Wallet, Jones Road Beauty, and Pella Cases are already using Rich Panel to save hundreds of thousands in support costs. Time to start letting AI work for you. Head to richpanel.com and start your free trial today. Real savings, real automation, real AI that actually works. Are you still finding that the mushroom gummy is accelerating in terms of demand, or are you finding that, hey, there's some natural ceilings and it needs to go back to a portfolio of products?
Yeah, great question. I mean, I think our mushroom gummies were a bit more of a less just sort of like anchored into mushrooms. I think that's what we're most known for is the adaptogens and sort of like mushroom gummy. That used to be our core products, but since then we've rolled out with a beauty gummy that has like tremella mushroom, and now we have a weight management gummy that doesn't have any mushrooms, and then we have like a hydration gummy that has no mushrooms, and a probiotic gummy that has no mushrooms. So we're definitely becoming more of a gummy company. In terms of like what we're seeing, I would say every gummy that has mushrooms in it for us right now is growing quarter over quarter and has been for about 11 quarters in a row. So I think the demand for us we're definitely past the point where we can't keep up with demand. I would say like in 2023, we were like struggling to keep up with demand. Obviously a great problem to have. And we had to expand our manufacturers during that time. I would also say that like our retailers during that year or our distributors gave us projections that were like 40% year over year less than what actually happened. So we were a little misled. No hate on anyone. Obviously, it's a great problem to have. But I would say that, the mushroom category is going to continue to climb. And it hasn't even really broken through fully to mainstream America right now. And the rest of the world is definitely catching on the mushroom. So I think the category is going to continue to grow. Demand's going to continue to grow. And we're seeing even more mainstream retailers starting to unlock mushrooms as a whole. So we have a huge ceiling to keep on reaching for on our end.
There was this CBD explosion of various different form factors kind of 5 to 8 years ago. You guys had exposure there and dabbled in that. Is mushrooms different, or talk us through the kind of rise and fall of CBD and why mushrooms may or may not be different?
Yeah, love this question. I can talk all day, every day about this. So CBD, I think, first and foremost, CBD, the cannabinoid and CBG, CBN, all of them are very impactful and they work. I am very bullish on them as a ingredient, a compound, whatever you want to call a product. I think that market will continue to grow. I think in terms of how we launch, so we launched predominantly with CBD related products, base products. So we never really sold just CBD oil or CBD isolate or like a CBD one ingredient product. We always mix CBD with adaptogens and nootropics. We were always using mushrooms. We were always using other herbs. Hands down, that's something that speaks to our name, Plant People. We're not CBD people, we're plant people for a reason. I would say that the CBD category, unfortunately, has now, I would say, quote unquote, like collapsed. And the main reason why, I do think it's actually kind of coming back slowly, but sort of in a adjusted normal market size, but an acceleration. But, CBD went through this place where a lot of investors got involved and a lot of people made a lot of money very early because of it. There was a lot of like early M&A. There was a lot of people who were already kind of in the CBD category and much bigger and then raising a lot of money and then exiting. And I think that was like the early adopter brands that did really well. And we were starting out sort of during that time. And there was a lot of interest with us. We had a lot of demand. I mean, we were probably the best performing CBD related brand in all of New York City. That was like our market. And I think it went to a point where too many investors got involved. And then when the saturation really hit, because there were so many companies with investors, they started to realize they couldn't hit valuations and they had to start lowering their prices. And also investors got involved in the supply side, all the farms. And so there was too much supply of product and farms. And it was beating the demand. And the issue with demand is that I always say for us at Plant People, you can build or with CBD in particular, you can build a best in class brand, but you can't have best in class growth. That's really important. The brand could be super cool. The products could really work. But if you can't sell on Amazon, you can't sell in Whole Foods, you can't sell in Sprouts, you can't sell in Target, you can't sell in Walmart, and you can't grow. There's a ceiling. So I think investors really looked at it as, and also people looked at it as like, okay, we're going to be a normal consumer goods brand that go into all those retailers and distributors and go on Amazon. But when with legalities, they weren't able to, then your ceiling's very low, and then you're stuck with all this supply. So I think that's kind of what happened in the CBD category. When I think about it, mushrooms is here to stay. The ceiling actually keeps on getting higher and higher. I think there are definitely a lot of brands in the mushroom space, but I would say consumers are coming in high volume from the top. We have really just started scratching the surface for mainstream consumers with mushrooms. It still is crossing the chasm from early adopters to mainstream. Do I think there'll be a point where it feels really saturated? Yeah. Do I feel like perception-wise, it feels saturated? Yeah. Do I feel like the demand is going to be much larger and beat out any saturation? Definitely. I think it's going to be sort of like a protein powder category to a certain extent. Not as big, but I think it can be, it's like the size of the market for turmeric, for tea or any other herbal ingredient.
What I want to tell you about today is Parker credit cards. Look, there are multiple subreddits dedicated to credit cards points hacking, and I get it. But what do entrepreneurs really want in today's market? Help managing their payback windows when acquisition starts ramping. With Parker credit cards, you get up to 90 days repayments on ad spend to help you on your cash conversion rather than having all that upfront ad spend before revenue starts coming in. Parker allows you to spend aggressively while still managing cash flow, including meta spend. So instead of hunting for best points or cashback programs, realize that the best ROI is to be able to increase your ad spend without hurting cash flow. Go and check them out. Parker credit cards at getparker.com. That's getparker.com. Parker is a financial technology company, not a bank. The Parker Commercial Credit MasterCard is issued by Patriot Bank and a member of the FDIC, pursuant to license by Credit Card International Incorporated. So then how do you balance between being an educational brand versus a commercial brand in a space where a customer understanding is still catching up to the science?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we tend to struggle with, but because we're growing so quickly and we have a lot more distribution, we're a bit more focused on being a commercial brand than we used to be on the educational brand. When you're an educational brand, it tends to be you are much smaller and you're trying to educate people on why you're different. The one thing I would say is, first and foremost, if our products don't work or they're not ethically sourced from a reliable, trusted partner, we don't do it. I think we look at consumers in two different buckets. I would say it's advanced power users, and we like to say it's around like 10% of the consumer base. And that group really informs and tells sort of the mainstream consumers, the extra 90%, what they should be buying. And you see athletes, you see doctors, you see herbalists, they're talking about these ingredients and sort of the Plant People brand because they're trusted. And they provide certificate of authenticity and analysis, and also, it's transparent about the supply chain. That's where, when you give that education to the early 10% power users and advanced users who are reading the labels, they sort of give the head nod to mainstream. You start to see those power users talking about it on podcasts. You see influencers talking about it on social media. And I think that's where it really pushes mainstream in the right direction. The one thing I would say is, for us to be a commercial brand, I think where we've done really well is we've taken really complex formulas that definitely work, but aren't sort of overkilling on education, and we're actually making it simple. So when you go into, say, a Whole Foods where products on shelves, you see all these sort of like mushroom products, but they're kind of like hard to read, and they're they have a lot of jargon and they feel really like earthy and sort of like, I don't know, just some of them are like kind of sciencey. And then you see our brand and it's very colorful and it's like we call it literally mushroom gummies. Like sometimes we do mention which mushrooms are on it, but we're not sort of like saying come buy reishi mushrooms and not saying what it does. We're showing reishi mushrooms, lion's mane and colorful packaging and saying this is good for these reasons. And making it super simplified. So we speak to both customers. We're definitely at a point where like we will not roll out a product unless advanced power users love it. But we're definitely more focused right now on marketing to mainstream customers and really being a commercial brand. On the checklist, we have like a science page where we walk through like our formulations and our standards. We educate customers on what the product does on the back of the packaging. And we like to anchor a lot of our social media and social content, but we're really at a point right now where we're just trying to reach more customers and being more of a commercial brand.
For that 10% of the market, the power users, are you investing a good amount of the marketing budget in being a part of that conversation with that's activations or seeding and product placement? Or are you downstream of that and saying, hey, we're focused on the 90%, we'll find them on Meta and TikTok?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as mentioned, we're definitely doing both. We're definitely seeding to power users, advanced users who really care about the ingredients. I think that's always a really good, again, like head nod to mainstream. But we're at a point right now where we have a lot of demand, a lot of interest in the products, and a very strong stickiness and LTV, where we're at a point where I'd say like we're just trying to get more customers in the funnel and getting more customers educated on the brand and the products, mostly because we know that they taste amazing and we know that they work. And it's just really thinking through like the Red Bull model of just like sampling and getting things out. So, we do a lot of demos. We're starting to increase our seating. We're doing a lot more sort of like event participation. And, I think where we how we think about customers is really trying to go deep and narrow and meeting them where they are at multiple touch points. So, I want to meet the same customer at Whole Foods, take the Whole Foods sort of customer. I want to capture them and get their attention there. But I also want them to see our products next to the cash register at a cafe. I want them to see our products, in the retail shop at a gym. I want them to see our products in ads. I kind of want to see them on all different, I want to reach them in all different ways at all times.
So maybe that's a good segue to channel mix. D2C, Amazon, retail, like what does that look like today and kind of how's that evolved over time?
So we started with, I would say in the early days pre-COVID, we started with D2C, and then we went after sort of like boutique accounts. We definitely went after cafes, boutique wellness accounts. And so I'd say like by 2020, before COVID hit, we were like 50-50. It was pretty awesome. We were 50% D2C, 50% in boutique independents. We weren't in major retailers. We weren't distributors. We weren't doing Amazon. And that's actually when we staffed up the team and we were going to launch at major retailers and distributors and we were setting up our Amazon account and then COVID hit and then it was a disaster. I would say where we started to pick up major retailers again and distributors was by the end of 2022. And I would say the years of where we become a really well-balanced, diversified channel mix started in the beginning of 2023. We started, we're in now, starting in that year, we're in Whole Foods, we're in Sprouts, we're in REI, Thrive Market. They didn't all happen in that year, but it really starting there. We're still picking up larger retailers and have been since basically the beginning of 2023. And then I would say in Q3 of 2023, we relaunched Amazon after that COVID sort of like debacle launch. And it's been amazing. I mean, Amazon, because we have this product market fit for this gummy product versus sort of the capsules and tinctures we used to sell, it's just been explosive. I think people are really searching for mushroom supplements. And then when they see a gummy over a powder or a tincture, they're like, wow, the gummy looks super yummy. Like, I'm going to choose that. So our split right now, our channel mix is around 40% wholesale, 30% Amazon, and the rest being D2C. Would love for our D2C to grow, but and be a bit more and like a thicker channel. But for us, we're extremely happy where we're at, and actually like we're kind of doubling down in that current trajectory right now.
Cards on the table. Your tech stack is held together with duct tape and prayers. If you're a brand founder or COO juggling Shopify, your 3PL portal, 3 different inventory trackers, and yes, that one crucial Google Sheet, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Orders get lost, inventory counts are fiction, and your seamless integrations break every other Tuesday. Endless Commerce changes the game. One platform for everything. D2C, wholesale, marketplaces, that works. AI-powered forecasting, real-time inventory visibility, and integrations that actually integrate. Teams like Great Jones, Food 52, and Pattern Brands already made the switch. So ready to ditch the chaos? Visit endlesscommerce.com. Mention me or In the Money when you reach out and get 3 months free. Because your ops stack should be your competitive advantage, not your biggest headache. Is there something from the last year that hasn't worked as well as assumed, a tactic, maybe a channel, maybe a product bet, and then the opposite, which is like what's been the biggest win from the last year?
I think what hasn't worked, I gotta say, we're definitely in this period where the last 2 years, it feels like everything is working, and I'm not faking it. It feels like there isn't really that much that isn't working for us right now because we have a lot of organic demand. I think with like paid, I think CAC has continued to fluctuate. It's definitely less than it was in COVID. And there was a period where the tariffs were happening. There was a lot of sort of like economic stress in the world. And then I know that like Meta changed some of their policies on wellness. So there was just like a jump in CAC. And that was like to us kind of a loss, but out of our hands. And yeah, I think like what's been a big win is going back to that channel mix is like we're definitely seeing this huge sort of like omnichannel approach really start to benefit. So retail introduces plant people, Amazon converts for plant people, and D2C retains them. And so we're starting to see this really healthy collaboration between the channels, and we can see it in the data. Outside of that, I would say like the biggest win so far is a few of our SKUs have been like the best performing supplement nationwide at Whole Foods a few weeks in a row. And we've really hit a lot of milestones with that partner. And then last but not least, we've launched 2 new products, mostly in the last few weeks. So hydration gummy and then a probiotic gummy, which I'm super pumped about.
And what informs kind of new product development?
Yeah. So as mentioned, I mean, I think if it doesn't work, we don't do it. And, with product development, it's interesting because you're constantly looking for the next cool ingredient, what's happening, where the market's going. But you also have to think through how much ROI you're going to get launching that type of product. So a great category, for example, and a huge market is, say, heart health, right? But when we look at our current product set, we just don't see the sleep customer, we don't see the stress customer, we don't see the focus customer buying a heart health product. So I think like there's this weird dance between, okay, what's like a hot, cool ingredient that we get really excited about that is science backed, plus what is the market size and the opportunity to be a first mover in it? And then third, how does it play in our first consumer base? And I think, there's this dance right there where we really need to make sure we're making, those 3 sort of buckets are working well with each other. The last thing I would say is, we're at a point now where we have enough SKUs. We can build 100 million plus business on this current product set that we have. We're not looking to over expand. And I think, I will say we have a probably like 6 to 7 product formulas that if someone was like, yo, you have to launch literally today, we could go into production with. So we're ready to sort of launch new products, but it's really like a timing piece and making sure that we're not overspending on cash and, using allocation as mentioned prior in this conversation, allocating cash to high performing products, not over risking with too many products and saturation while trying to make sure it makes sense in our portfolio for our current customers. You want your current customers to be retained with a product that you think they might like. I don't know, for example, as mentioned with the heart health, I don't know if someone who is taking a focus gummy or a greens gummy is going to jump into this heart health product. Will they want a stress product? I don't know. I'm pretty sure that makes sense in their sort of like arc of the day.
Hudson, as we head toward a wrap, what's the thing that you're most excited about for the remainder of the year? And kind of what's something that maybe you're looking for from the universe? Capital, collaborators, creative talent?
Yeah. And last thing actually I would say on the product piece, I just forgot that I want to mention is one thing that's really important for me as CEO is making sure that the product we launch with can hit all channels. Going back to the ROI, the product we launch with or roll out into the market needs to be something that a retailer will sell, something that will be perform on Amazon and perform on D2C. That is really important to us because then you just get full ROI on that product. If you are selling a product that only works well on one or two of those three channels, what ends up happening is like it's just a slower mover. And then you really want to unlock those capital dollars into the higher performing capital dollars. So that was the last thing I wanted to note on that. In terms of what I'm looking for, well, 2023, we got back up to revenue pre-COVID, broke even. We were burning a lot of cash during COVID. Pre-COVID, we were profitable. Last year was our first profitable year after a hard, long, strenuous journey and delivering on that plan I came up with back in the midst of COVID. And yeah, last year we doubled in revenue and we were profitable for the first time and pretty well profitable for a business our size. And then this year we're just going to do more of the same. So I'm just really grateful to be done with that COVID period because it was a very stressful time. And so I'm just really excited and really happy to be doing what we're doing, which is we're going to double this year. We're already on track for doing that, if not more, and be profitable again and just have like a healthy business model. That type of health is 100% what makes the team happy to showing up to work. So I'm just really excited to be doing that. And then last but not least, I mean, we have some pretty major retailer launches happening in the next 6 months. Pretty big. So I'm really excited for that.
Hudson, so excited for you. I think love sharing these stories of brands that were stressed, but then kind of through a lot of pragmatism and hard work turned around. So I appreciate you coming on and sharing the story and look forward to next time.
Great. Well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.